Right, before this video gets its bit more serious undertone, Bo, I'm out of the firing range. Are you happy now? Are you? Can we kiss and make up? Right, anyway, serious time. I was so bloody wrong. Admittedly, this is a minor screw up, and when I show it to you, half of you are going to be like, what? Is that it? But the implications of getting this one small little thing wrong can potentially be huge. Not only because, one, I've been trying to show and pride myself on getting the absolute correct information out there so that you guys have the most informed and reputable information. You might have noticed that I don't really do that many build videos. That's because I'm under the impression that if you can think of a build in this game at this point, someone somewhere has done it, made a video about it and bragged about it with hashtag best build ever. So I try not to do too many builds. The idea of what I'm trying to do is break down individual components of those builds, obliterate, measured, glass cannon, vigilance, and explain in detail, matter-of-factly, how they work. And I've got it wrong. No ifs, no buts, no excuses. I've got it wrong. And one thing that's been a constant throughout all of this is actually one of you who's continually and very politely tried to just put me on the correct path. Just double check your workings. Your workings correct, but your terminology is wrong, or your terminology is right, but your workings aren't correct. And I have just been a defensive dick to this person throughout. I'd like to think we've kept it remotely civil. We've been communicating non-publicly via Discord, trying to organise a time on when we could both be in voice chat at the same time to actually sit down and talk about it, which has been difficult. So I'd like to try and think that we've been mostly civil, but if there's been any hostilities between the two sides, it has 100% been on me. So Dispatch, if you are watching this, I am so very sorry. Yeah. If I came across arrogant or egotistical, I am sorry. I just felt completely and honestly within myself that I had the full picture and my math was backing it up for me. And all I was missing was a single bloody decimal. That's it. That's all I was missing. One bloody decimal. And because of that one bloody decimal, turns out, I've not gone through every comment, I haven't got that sort of time, but I've gone through at least like 80% of them, and you are 100% right so far. So I'm going to assume on the remaining 20% that I haven't checked that you're also bloody right. All of this came to a head when in one of the Discords I'm in, which is headed up by the Bo person I mentioned earlier, Broken Arrow Gaming. These are some very top tier elite players. In there is a man called Hutchler. I'm not really expecting any of you to know him, but I can guarantee you at some point you've probably seen his Division 2 work or workings. So if you've ever seen like a Division 2 spreadsheet anywhere, like that's been publicly released, I can guarantee you, near enough, don't actually know if this is fact, but the way in which people hold this guy with his regard is he is either worked on it directly or worked with the people working on it. So he has had a hand in it somewhere, somehow, because that's Hutchler. So huge shout out to Hutchler. He literally mathematically kicked my ass. It was like an explosion of alphabet spaghetti, but there were numbers everywhere rather than letters. It was rather entertaining. So on that note, there is a link to Hutchler's YouTube channel below. I don't know if he regularly uploads. I did check. They're mostly speed runs that he has posted, but they are absolutely going to be worth a watch because this guy is like the OG godfather of mathing out the Division. Absolutely, I would suggest go checking him out. And on that one as well, Dispatch, because I know you're going to watch this, because for some odd reason, despite our interactions, you've literally watched every single one of my videos. Like, I can't fathom why. I've been mostly a dick to you and you're still bloody watching. But you need to start doing content as well, okay? If you don't, I'm going to go back to screaming obliterates additive and wind you up with it until you start making more Division 2 content, or actually start making Division 2 content. So, why is this theoretically a big deal? One, well, this has seriously damaged what little pride I did have in the first place. Secondly, although with a lot of the equations I've shown, the discrepancies have only been 1 or 2 or 3 damage, it can potentially lead that when you start incorporating team buffs, raids, raid mechanics, countdown, that this can go from being 1 or 2 damage to hundreds, potentially even thousands. And like I said, the main reason for me is I have tried to be a reputable channel of where I am providing you with the correct information. And regardless of how small the mistake may or may not be, depending on your perception, the fact of the matter is I have, whether inadvertently or on purpose, I have lied to you. And to me, this makes me no better than the majority of the clickbait Division 2 streamers that are already out there. So for that, I really, really, really do apologise. This is something I do genuinely care about. I've tried to set myself aside from the normal. I've tried to come at this from like an objective mathematical standpoint and clearly show individual workings, give a bit of my opinion on what one is technically better and why, or why I feel one is better, and then mostly leave the decision making on how you want to build up to you guys. And for me, I've now blown that because I've done it wrong, which I am absolutely not proud about. Right, before I actually get into showing you the discrepancy, this is actually something I've been working on. An automatic DPS calculator. You just click on the thing you want and it will automatically show you your damage. There are a few of these out there, however I wanted to do one because I wanted to do one. That's all. Those sheets there are all the maths and calculations I was using to make this, and yeah, I was actually really proud of it. And now it's just wrong. She's hilarious. Talk about a waste of time. But yeah, all I had to do was figure out how to get it to multiply the shown multiplicative stats. I figured out how to do, loads. Well, for me it was loads because I'd never really used a spreadsheet really before. I did most of my calculations either in my head or using Google, and then it just make a spreadsheet, learn how to make it automatic, and Bob's your uncle and Fanny's your aunt. Right, the discrepancy is here. You can see my weapon damage is 110.6, but if I come over here, it says 110.572. The game is clearly rounding it up. I was using that number at its face value, like it was fact. The game clearly, now that I've just pointed that out to you, is rounding shit up. Now I was using FAMAS to do a lot of these calculations because Optimus just is a mess. So my overall weapon damage with the FAMAS would be 101.639, And when I put that through the calculations, I get 514, 517, which I've shown numerous times. I've used it in many examples, many calculations, etc, etc, etc. It's been sort of like my go-to build as well as equation for solving problems. Hutchler comes at me with this in about 5 damn minutes. Where I was taking that number at base value, he comes at me with the actual base calculations and then proves to me, one, that obliterate is fucking multiplicative, despite what I've been arguing all this time, and shock, horror, gasp, look, 514, 518, which is my on-screen damage when using that build with FAMAS, which I've shown so many times. I've been claiming that the discrepancy is purely because the game doesn't like decimals. This is completely false. Completely and utterly false. If I do the same thing again and just put the equation in how I was calculating it using his spreadsheet, you can see there 514, 517. Because when you actually work it out correctly from base, it actually changes the full equation and the way in which things are applied. On the surface, my equations were not exactly wrong. It was my starting value, and because I wasn't starting in the correct location, it ended up putting me at the wrong result, which led me to believe that certain things were interacting in a certain way. Hence why I argued obliterate is additive. When you work it out from base, there is only one explanation for the end results that you would potentially get. Now, with all this in mind, it means I now need to go back and correct mistakes. When I first started doing this seriously would be this strikers video. There are discrepancies in this. The overall message is the same. I am not wrong in that. I'm wrong in the final product of it and how it works. In short, if you actually want to know, go onto the video, find Dispatch's comment, his first one. You haven't got to read the whole lot because his first one explains it perfectly, and then after that it's back and forth between he and I, him trying desperately to explain it and me being a dick. It's the final product of it, as well as my terminology, that I am wrong on. Next one would be obliterate versus glass cannon, multipliers. What I was attempting to show here is obliterate being additive and glass cannon being multiplicative. The product of this is correct because I'm using vigilance, which then therefore becomes a biased test. If you test it at base value, there is no damn difference. Next would be what affects your skills. This still holds 100% true. My favourite build is a build video. Uzina's a build video. That's a build video. Next would be Pestilence build testing. This one from preliminary testing now with the correct formula. I kind of hate Hutch for this bit because I had what I tested over about 109 builds, and I've now got to test every single one of them again. I've tested the ones that I've shown on this video. They mostly still hold true. The discrepancies, because of the way in which Pestilence works with that tick, Plague of the Outcast, the debuff, the discrepancy goes from being 1, 2 or 3 damage, as I've shown previously or mentioned in this video. It now goes up to about 50 damage. From what I've tested so far, there seems to be no difference in the ordering, but there very well could be. On my Optimist video, this actually hasn't changed because all of it was done just by showing on range rather than any form of mathematical workings. The overall calculations for it though, I have no idea. I have asked Hutchler, but he just he also told me that there's just no easy way to calculate Optimist. Damage workings for True Patriot Full Flag hasn't changed. The discrepancies in Fenris versus Grupo, this honestly, it just widens the gap just because of the interactions with the more critical hit damage over 50%. Measured, I've already loosely mentioned this. This, with the way in which I was working, it actually bloated the values more. I stated that it's approximately about a 20% increase. It's not, it's 2%. So you could literally have a weapon that has no talent, and the exact same weapon with measured on, the one with measured will only give you a 2% increase. The way in which it's overall calculated, I seem to be correct for now. I'm going to defer back to Hutchler for this one. But my end result, because I wasn't doing the calculations from base, yeah, it ended up being a lot more bloated than I originally anticipated, and the result is horrific. I really do apologise, and I also apologise to those that use measured. My angry video comparing improvised to Fox's. This one's weird because when I rechecked it with improvised, there were 0 changes, nothing changed. But when I compared it again to Fox's, I got that 1 damage. Admittedly, it's only 1, but I got that 1 damage discrepancy, which even further widened the gap as to why Fox's beat improvised, which we already knew. Shield Splinterer versus FAMAS, nothing changes. Weapon handling, nothing changes. Carbine 7 versus Honey Badger, it's a direct comparison. As for the whole DPS doesn't equal lower time to kill, there is actually a discrepancy with this due to the exponential rate in which the AKM will gain damage versus the FAMAS. The overall change, weirdly, on the AKM and the time to kill doesn't change whatsoever. However, there was a 0.1 to 0.3, depending, change on the FAMAS. The lowest I could still find it going was to 1 second exactly, which still kind of proves my point of the AKM still being able to potentially kill things, despite the fact that it was an incredibly biased test. However, FAMAS is a lot better off than I potentially portrayed it in this video, which shortens the gap between them. FAMAS still is objectively better in this scenario. Right, I have one more thing to do before closing this video off. I do apologise for it being so long, like nearly 20 minutes, bloody hell. But yeah, apparently a worthy sacrifice must be given to the all-seeing bow. I'm not going to end this video with my usual catchphrase. I'm just going to take myself out with the trash. Again, I really am sorry for misleading you. I can promise you it was not intentional. I was just being a dumbass. And again, Dispatch, I am sorry for not taking you on your word and being, for lack of a better term, an arrogant dick about it. And again, a huge, huge thank you to Hutchler for setting me on the right path. With all that being said, Lebo down.